For as long as I can remember, I've loved racing games. Ever since the first time I picked up a controller when I was, I'd say 3-4 years old, racing games have been an integral part of who I am. Within the racing game genre, there are definitely different types of racing games, but there are a few that I hold above all others. Stuff like Need for Speed Heat, Real Racing 3, GTA to an extent, but none of those even come close to the most important game in my life, full stop. Gran Turismo. If you're watching this video, you know what Gran Turismo is, and if you don't, why are you here? Like, what, curiosity? Just go look it up yourself. Gran Turismo was first released in Japan in December of 1997 and the rest of the world in 1998 by Polyphony Digital, a company under Sony. The game started out as a PlayStation exclusive and has remained like that ever since, although the game has changed quite a bit over its near 30-year lifespan at this point. Gran Turismo 1 and 2 set the foundations for what the game would be in the world of racing games. I mean, its promo tagline says it all. The games managed to look absolutely great for PS1 games while also managing to cram 180 real-life cars into it. While that may not seem too crazy now, in 1997, the Stone Age, people went buck wild over the fact that they could drive a real GT500 Supra with their own grubby little hands on a racetrack set on Tokyo's highways or made-up racetrack. They went even crazier when they could do that exact same thing on a real track. Or even crazier, a hill climb, which they still haven't fucking done since then, even though they hold the exclusive fucking rights to it. But I digress. Fuck you, Polyphony. GT3 and 4 took it to whole new levels visually, physically, and socially. And then GT5 and 6 did nothing but cement the legacy of Gran Turismo in the minds of millions. Even if they were a bit more questionably designed compared to the previous ones. In 2017, the producer of the series, Kazunori Yamauchi, or Kaz as everybody in Gran Turismo's community calls him, decided GT needed to go to a new direction, taking the slogan of the game way more seriously and making Gran Turismo Sport, which is about as close as us console gamers could get to a full-fledged racing simulator, even if it meant sacrificing other portions of the game. Gran Turismo 7 was supposed to bring those missing portions back, and while GT7 has been pretty disappointing in some aspects, or all aspects if you're Raffle Waffle, just joking. The game now has become the industry diamond standard for what a racing game should feel like, look like, and sound like. Excluding those ultra-realistic sim racing games like iRacing and Le Mans Ultimate, because, look, I know fanboys of those games love calling other people retarded for playing any racing game that doesn't make you want to kill yourself. So, other than those, GT7 is the gold standard. Today, while a little tarnished in the eyes of diehard fans of the series, Gran Turismo is still just about the most popular racing game in the world that doesn't include a little Calabrian plumber with a red hat and his fucking turtle friends, and his cousin with a green hat. But I've got to bring up what it is today. Now, I like GT7. Quite a bit actually, probably my favorite behind only GT6, which was my first Gran Turismo game since I'm a young buck, and GT4, which I only got to play about 30% before crowning it my favorite game because I enjoyed it that much. The reason why I only got to play 30% is because I lost it in the move to my current home. So, yeah, still pissed about that. And my PS2 doesn't work anymore. I do think GT7 has some flaws though. It does a lot of things really good. I mean, first and foremost, it's probably one of the most gorgeous games out right now. I mean, it's on screen, you just have to look, just use your eyes. Secondly, the customization is top tier, especially the livery editor. Like, there's so many iconic racing liveries that aren't in the game naturally, and in older games you just have to deal with it. But now, you can just go to GT Auto, pick a style made by some random guy. Now you have the exact paint job one for one, because some dude spent way too much time making it. And I thank that guy. Using the livery editor is a bit weird to get used to, but once you do, you yourself can make some pretty amazing designs. Not saying my designs are the best, but I believe they're pretty good for someone who's so inept at making anything artistic that, like, a goldfish could outdraw me. The cracker, by the way, not the fish. Thirdly, and probably most obviously though, is the multiplayer. The online community in GT7 is unreal. I already mentioned the livery editor, but being able to take your own absolutely insane looking scapes photos or your drift videos or full races and you can post them on the community tab, that allows for you to feel more connected to the other players in the game and give personalities to people you race against. But the racing is what takes the cake for me. because like racing online has never felt so good in any other game before. I mean, connection can still be an issue sometimes, but that's always expected. The penalty system is flawed, which I will get to. But the overall vibe of racing in GT7 is so satisfying. The game's focus on esports allowed for Polyphony to make an online racing mode that any random person can enter. They can go through their trials and tribulations with rammers and sore losers and dumbasses, and they can still finish their session enjoying the time they spent there. That's how it was for me, at least. But it's this focus on esports that's also my biggest gripe with GT7, among a couple other things. While it's great that the game has expanded this much and is now world renowned for its physics, even creating a driver program out of its ability to simulate real life, many years before Gran Turismo started taking this whole real life racing simulator vibe, it ended up sacrificing a large part of Gran Turismo's identity to a lot of people: the single player experience. There's no denying this, because I defend GT7 a lot. I believe a lot of hate isn't justified towards it, but the bulk of it is justified for this reason. The single player campaign is absolute shit from butt. It is terrible. GT4 is considered among most diehards of the series the absolute best GT game. While some say it's because of the tracks or the car selection, the majority of people praise it for its single player mode / campaign, as I like to call it, because my COD ass is rotted as hell. GT4's career mode is long, it's arduous, but it's rewarding. The main races and series you need to do take about 75 hours to complete, but unless you hate having fun, you're likely to explore other parts of the game such as special conditions races, endurance races, and the extreme events. In all, it takes over 260 hours to 100% the game. But above all else, the reason why everyone loved GT4's single player so much despite it being so damn long is because you could play it however you wanted to, barring some restrictions on some events. There was no strict order that you had to follow in order to reach the GT World Championship, other than going through the beginner, then professional events. Each person could pretty much have a completely different garage from another by the time they reached it. Some routes would provide much faster cars, others slower. Some provided more 90s JDM, others 80s Euro. More race cars, more street cars, the whole 9 yards. Before the money glitches began to come in, like the Toyota HSC, whatever it was, that you could just get from a tiny race that took like 5 minutes and you could sell it for $250,000. People could have 3 different runs of the game, and each one they'd use a different vehicle in the GT World Championship. Replayable single player modes are by far the most popular and well-liked format of a game because it's individual to you. It's unique to you. And, you know, who doesn't love feeling different and special? To this day, it's still very popular to speedrun the game or just straight up replay it because there's that many different ways to reach the end. On top of that, it was just very well produced and felt genuinely rewarding to finish. I've never reached the end of GT4 as stated before, but from all accounts, the game was actually difficult to finish. Not hard, but like an enjoyable challenge that all could eventually win, properly or not. The GT World Championship is specifically talked about as being very, very difficult and a massive step up in difficulty from all previous races, and it needed genuine dedication to beat. All these factors combined are what make GT4 single player absolutely great, the benchmark for Gran Turismo since then. The exact opposite of that is GT7 single player. An extended tutorial on how to drive cars that also just has to tell you how cool this car is, or this car is, or this car. Look, Luca, buddy, I bet you're a nice guy in real life. Seriously, I really do. But for the love of all that's holy, shut the fuck up. You don't even actually talk, and you still need to talk less. Another thing with previous Gran Turismos is that there wasn't really a story. It was just race till you get better and better, competition until you beat them. The faintest hint of a story was within the races themselves, your opponents, and the cars you have to use. Gran Turismo is a car person's car game. It always has been. And so for these people who like cars, seeing iconic shit was like an Easter egg to them. It's not explicitly shown off or anything, but is there to appreciate. If you weren't the biggest car person, there's a high likelihood Gran Turismo turned you into one. You were fascinated by these brightly colored designs on these chassis and you wanted to learn more, so you read magazines, actually surfed the web, asked your friends and family, forums, or in my case in 2014 you just went on YouTube, but before that it was, you know, the internet. In GT7, the story forces you to collect cars that you don't really want, and you end up selling them 2 seconds after you get them. The older games didn't treat you like you were touring a museum. It allowed you to choose whether you wanted to become attached to certain cars or not. In GT7, After every stupid menu, which is how you progress through the game, by buying or earning cars outright, by the way, so it's not rewarding at all. Luca or Andy or Sarah or any of the GT drivers like Hazal, who I have no hate against. I love the guy. I watch him on YouTube, but seeing that stupid fucking icon pop up, I'm sick of him. After every stupid menu, they come through and give you a 4-minute lecture on the Audi TT. It's maddening. Like, seriously. It really ruins the game for a lot of Gran Turismo fans, as they loved these games for the single player mode. They loved being able to create their own garage full of cars they wanted to own in real life, ones they actually found interesting, and they weren't forced to have this or that or be force-fed facts about hatchbacks or the most famous cars ever made, so everybody already knows everything about it. Gran Turismo 7's story, in quotes, is just condescending, as well as being poorly designed in the way that its individual elements are really good, but there's nothing that ties them together, and therefore there's no real incentive or motivation to come back and play. It's also online only, which is a entire other can of worms that I don't have the time to get into. This video is already going to be very long. If I talked about games being online only, this video would span at least half a day. I suspect that both the pandemic as well as Kaz's shift away from his older games and old processes in general, which he's talked about multiple times, as well as the rumor that he doesn't actually want a single player mode at all, and he never really wanted one after online racing really became a thing, all of that factored into GT7 being so full of potential, yet being a complete disappointment. We can always hope, or delude ourselves rather, that one day it'll all be fixed. But since I'm egotistical enough to have a YouTube channel and give my own unprofessional opinion on shit way beyond my scope, I can just make my own perfect Gran Turismo game. So I was heavily inspired by Rafa Waffle's video on his perfect Gran Turismo game and thought to myself, yeah, sure, I can do that. Yeah, I can make it unique to myself. But it ended up being so unique that I actually just wasn't a Gran Turismo game anymore. So then I changed my idea from making the perfect GT game to making the perfect racing game in general. That just so happened to be almost entirely based off of Gran Turismo's golden age. So, let me introduce you to my perfect racing game, Forged Premier. There was an insane amount of stuff that I wanted to touch upon with this made-up game of mine. So, here's literally everything. Let's talk about the perfect racing game to me, since I'm the one making the video and you're not. I find it funny that this is something I genuinely needed to talk about, but I sort of realized that that's a genuine concern among people who play video games now. With AAA games becoming more and more expensive every year, I thought I might as well ensure that this game doesn't really fall victim to that fat-bellied, slick-haired extortioning that plagues video games today. With the scope of this game being so big, I decided that it should be literally a tad more expensive than an average game. So the final price I decided on is $105. Canadian. Almost had you. For all my international viewers, which means Americans, British people, some random dudes in India, and an Eastern European country of your choice, here are the prices for your region, I think. I know it's a little more pricey than average, but please, bear with. The visuals will just be an upgraded version of GT7, mostly because I'd expect this game to come out on the next gen of consoles, which is, what, 3 to 4 years? But the size will reflect my assumption / hubris here. It's gonna be beefy. With GT7 being about 110 gigabytes on console, expect, I don't know, 200? Maybe a little bit bigger? Again, I know this sounds ridiculous to say right at the start, and I'm guessing a lot of people are really fucking angry at me right now. We'll get to it. Exactly like GT7's. I think it's a perfect balance of arcadey and realistic. Something about transferring weight when cornering or wet weather driving, feeling the bumps in street circuits and tracks, like it's just so perfect. Like you cannot fault GT7's handling. Maybe the dirt and snow physics could have a tiny bit of a touch up, but hey, having a game like this be too arcadey doesn't fit the vibe, but having realism be 100% the main focus makes it less approachable and less fun. It's why you just don't mess with iRacing and shit like that. And this also prevents those diehard sim racing losers who don't know what compromising is. You know, they stay away from this masterpiece of mine, and I really, really want that. But yeah, speaking of realism, while I do appreciate it in video games of any kind, on a game like Gran Turismo, There comes a certain point where realism provides only marginal benefits to the gameplay or just straight up makes it worse. A racing game that has fees for traveling or fees for crashing isn't a game, that's just simulating real life. A problem I have with Gran Turismo is that Kaz seems to be taking that moniker of his to the absolute max, the real driving simulator. More and more now, we see that effect seep into Gran Turismo, and there's no area that demonstrates this more than the Legend Cars dealership. There are multiple cars that cost 20 million credits. The highest paying race in the game at max can give you 1.5 million credits. And it's an hour long, meaning you need to spend 14 hours at the same track with the same conditions in the same car, or you can switch it up if you want to lose, just for one of many vehicles that cost $20 million. This is not the same enjoyment as doing an endurance race either, because the AI are genuinely fucking stupid. As well as the weather being fixed, it will always rain once in the race. It ends up just making it so boring. And it defeats the purpose of making the car cost damn near the same amount it does in real life. Because realism doesn't involve driving on the same track, winning 14 times in a row with the same rain pattern coming in every single time you race. So realism will only be utilized in this game when it enhances the experience. And if you're that type of person who enjoys 100% realism, you have iRacing, you have Le Mans Ultimate, you have BeamNG, which I like BeamNG, but it doesn't advertise itself as a racing game. Ladies and gentlemen, you catch me at a perfect time. This is Editor currently playing the game, showcasing to you the fact that Gran Turismo 7's fucking design thing doesn't work. His whole realism, Legend Cars bullshit. I'm in here right now trying my damnedest to finally get this, and I'm almost there. But I don't know if you've seen this to the top right. I've been at this since 10 a.m. I have driven the distance from Toronto, Canada to about 100 kilometers southwest of Memphis, and I still have one more race to do. So, yeah. If you needed physical proof of realism in Kaz's eyes not fucking working, here you go. Because I've been doing this stupid glitch with this Fiat and this stupid race at Spa, the 1 hour race at Spa, for hours. So there you go. Case in point that it doesn't fucking work. The UI is arguably just as important as the actual game itself. A hard to navigate or conversely empty UI just gives the wrong impression. So the home screen will be formatted pretty much like GT7's UI, but a little more sophisticated and refined, since the game is literally called Premier, which I did say Premiere to make it more, acceptable to English people, but it's Premier, which means first in French, and Premier means best in English. There you go, your fucking little history lesson. It needs to fit that title. I find it gives the right vibe for this type of game. The final thing of these preliminaries is the music, which I decided to entirely base off my taste. I decided to have a mix of music I enjoy to play the most when I race. I may be the odd one out here, but relaxed in quotes, rhythmic music is all I can listen to when playing this game. Any other type just doesn't feel right. Stuff like atmospheric D&B, house, cloud rap or atmospheric rap, whatever you want to call it, jazz rap, and jazz are all going to be featured in this.
I'm distant, lost my mind a long time ago to finding need forensics.
I beat the MC Trouble, rest in peace. Word up, rest in peace. And you know what else? We got the vibe.
Bring rock a place. Tell me what to do.
There's also going to be original songs too for like menus and in-game stuff. So I can now finally talk about what Forge Premier is for, aka What is my ideal perfect racing game? So to put it bluntly, this game is meant to be an expanded Gran Turismo. More cars, more tracks, more disciplines of racing, more history, more everything. An all-inclusive car game that's updated semi-frequently to keep up and represent car culture from the past and today. Maybe even the future. We could have our own Vision Gran Turismo, call it something not called Vision Gran Turismo, and have it be actually useful instead of fucking Vision Gran Turismo. A playable car compendium. The only car game you'd ever need. It's a one-time payment, sort of. The game is yours. No Ubisoft shit here. It's yours. Free DLC. In-game currency can only be bought after completing a certain point of the single player. I'll explain the method to actually make money from this game later. Just bear with, it's gonna take a while. It's the ultimate car game. Not just for car people, but for all people. So, with my noble intentions out the way, let's talk about the content. Starting off with the cars. I originally did start making a full car list, and I got all the way down to Ferrari, and then realized at this pace it would take about 20 hours of my life away just for this section. I value my life, and I sort of have other things that I'm supposed to be doing. Therefore, I didn't do that. But to give you a perspective into what types of cars I'd have in this game, it would range from EcoBoxes and sedans to Grand Tours and hypercars. And that's before mentioning all the racers in the game. You'll get the idea from the cars shown on screen now, but something to note is that for all the street cars, I plan on putting either the highest trim available with that vehicle, such as with Audi's RS's, BMW's M's, Hyundai's N's, or for some cars, including the most commonly sold model in its history, and providing an upgrade for it for a fee in the game's customization shop, which will be touched upon later. Even with this method of slimming down as much as possible while still retaining as much of car history as possible, as I said before, on track for 20 hours, it's still going to be a lot of cars. But all the usual brands you expect will show up with their most famous models and some less famous ones to keep this game fresh. All in all, around 1,000 cars was what I was aiming for, and not like 1,000 cars like Gran Turismo 6 where there's like, what is it, 24 Miatas? There's no fucking need for that. That 1,000 number will be blown up by certain brands who have a lot of memorable cars that a lot of people really want to drive. And another reason is certain brands having a much larger presence this time around compared to GT7. One of my personal, and I mean personal, one of my personal biggest flaws I see in GT7 is the lack of TVR. TVR was pretty much given one last lifeline by the original Gran Turismo, seeing as it was one of the only non-Japanese brands in the game. In GT7 you get one TVR, and it's by far the worst one out of the big four, which is the Cerbera, the Tuscan, the Chimera, and the Sagaris. The Cerbera is the best, the Sagaris is the second best, the Chimera is the third best, and the Tuscan fucking sucks. Not really, but you know what I mean. In this game, almost no stone would be left unturned. I can't include all car companies ever for the sake of being a tad realistic, even though there isn't a nun's pussy hair worth of realism in this game so far, but I digress. The cars would be categorized by two criteria: tags and a term I coined PRS, or PRs as people would probably call it. It stands for the Premier Rating System, or the Premier's Rating System. And it's literally just performance points but renamed. The 0 to whatever the Tomahawk XPP rating is system is just too perfect not to directly copy. The tags, however, while not entirely original, will serve a greater purpose than they do in GT7, because GT7 does have tags. If you look under a vehicle when you select it, it has tags like midship or 2000s. My tags will categorize vehicles into different categories such as street, sedan, sports, 2000s, German. That's like an M5. Certain events will have restrictions on what cars are allowed to compete in it with tags. So it's a slightly more unique and specific method to categorize vehicles in the game. Sort of like how you can categorize your cars by PP and GT, you can do the same with PRs in this game. And then you can specify it even more with tags. With such a large amount of vehicles in the game, this specificity is definitely needed if you want to find your cars quicker and easier. The customization is practically the exact same as GT7 in both performance and styling. A difference in my game is that certain upgrades can change a car's associated tags, opening up new events to that vehicle and barring it from others. Kinda like how certain races require only comfort or sports tires and vice versa with slicks, but it applies to certain visual upgrades too, such as aero. A problem with Gran Turismo 7 now is that with GT Auto, you can customize a road car to look like a race car, but it will still be categorized as a road car, meaning you can use it in road car events where it will dominate. But if you put it in a race car event, you can't use it and you probably will get shit on. Certain aero upgrades and combinations of aero upgrades will change a car from, say, a street sports car to a race touring car. Apart from that though, the livery editor is appearing, soon helmet customization is appearing, body kits are returning. On some cars, body kits are actually more than just kits, actually being full-blown upgrades that upgrade the car to a higher spec. Sort of like the racing modifications in the first couple of GT games and some of the later ones, but a little less extreme. Say turning a first gen R8 V8 into a V10. These spec upgrades cost money, totaling to what the upgraded model would have been if it were its own model. This prevents duplicates and bloat, while taking less time to model too. Engine swaps will also be their own separate thing. I just use the Audi R8 V10 V8 thing as an example, but you can also not turn it into a V10 and just literally only swap the V10 into it and not gain any of the other performance benefits if you want. What good's all these cool ass cars and customization without proper tracks? I, being an absolute fool, decided that I would 100% give every single track I would put in this game. It would be shorter than the cars list, right? And while it was, by a long shot, it still took a solid 6 hours of searching up every continent's major in-use racetracks and choosing out of them what to put in the game. The total track list, not including variations and all that, 100 different playable tracks of all different kinds of disciplines, and they're not all real tracks too. I've decided to call the original circuits of this game Forged Tracks, which is a very nice double meaning. GT7's limited selection of different disciplines really bothers me sometimes, especially when they've shown in the past that they can diverge and create cool shit. I mean, there were point-to-point rallies and special modes in GT5. I think it was Sebastian Loeb's rally event. Pikes Peak made its only fucking appearance in Gran Turismo 2. They haven't really done drag racing apart from in licensed tests and missions and stuff like that. Why can't they scan full rally stages or add drag modes and other stuff? So I decided to make my developers go through hell. Here's all the tracks from each continent. Pause if you want to read through them. These are directly copied from my notes, and to be honest, I don't have the energy to give a full description of every single forged track. So, sorry for the rudimentary explanations. The numbers beside each track are the official FIA grade for each circuit, by the way, so certain races can happen only at certain tracks unless special exceptions are made for very special ideas, which I'd plan to have very liberal usage of. I want to see a GT1 car or an LMP1 car race at Brands Hatch. I think that's really funny. That's what video games are for. My personal favorite forged tracks, by the way, are the Nauru Ring Circuit, Echoes of the Past, the Paris Dakar stage, and the Circuit de Marseille International. There we go. It's been a while since I've spoken French. I'm sorry, all my French viewers. So, with the tracks, cars, customization, music, and overall foundation of the game set, we can now talk about the most important part of any Gran Turismo game, the single player. Unlike GT7 and GT Sport, and to an extent GT6 too, other Gran Turismo games have always been focused on a rich, fulfilling single-player experience that has a clear set of races and championships that you go through in ascending order, from easiest and slowest to hardest and fastest. Whether this was intentional or not is a whole other question, but what's not questionable is that this formula is the core tenet of Gran Turismo, whether Kaz wants to admit it or not. No matter how hard he tries to be an esports developer or a tour guide telling you every single thing about a Citroen BX, the game will always be focused on the single-player experience. With that fulfilling single-player experience now gone though, I have taken the burden of mapping out a fully planned career mode with all events named, all leagues, purpose of each, everything. I sacrificed my time to bring you all some hope through my words of a decently well thought out single-player mode featuring a main story, licensed tests, and more. The races vary from your typical sub 10-minute race series to full-blown endurance races. So, let's get into it. Starting with the amateurs. The amateurs, or not so big leagues as I'd probably call them in this game, would be the equivalent of National B or amateur events in previous entries of Gran Turismo. Low stakes, low rewards, mini-series. They use short tracks, slow cars, and pretty easy AI. That being said, it doesn't mean that this is just a necessary filler, as through each of the mandatory events required to progress forwards, you learn how to drive different styles of vehicles, as well as different tracks. Every event, as well as the license tests, aren't there to just progress through the game. They're meant to teach you something new or different about racing. On the topic of licenses, by the way, that's not what they're called in this game, but I'll talk about that after this. Here are all the events in the not-so-big leagues. It'll be shown on screen if each event is mandatory to complete to move on, and I've chosen to have mandatory and non-mandatory events as a way for players who want to get through the game fast, for some reason, to not have to drive different types of vehicles that don't really show up recurringly later in the game. But for those who do want to drive all types of cars, which is what the purpose of the game is, it's an easy way to earn extra money, get different price cars, and learn different driving styles for different vehicles. The first event in the game is called the Weekend Warriors, and I'm guessing you could gather that it takes some inspiration from the Sunday Cup. Because I'm just, so creative. I'm the most creative ever. Its premise is the same as the Sunday Cup. 3 races, slow cars, low amount of laps, the usual starter series to get you warmed up for a game. The City Crawlers event varies as it only takes place on street circuits in the game. It's an easy way to showcase some original tracks as well as teach newcomers the basics of narrow lines, as well as the pain of hitting wall after wall in a Mazda 3. And we have our first non-mandatory event, Drop Top Driving. Only convertibles are allowed to compete in this series, and this sort of sets the precedent for some future non-mandatories in the game. Niche guidelines that result in a pretty cool reward for being this early in the game, but not too OP as in being able to be sold for crazy amounts of dollars or being way too fast for this stage of the game. But they're definitely a noticeable increase in quality. This idea is what incentivizes players to explore the other parts of the game rather than just sticking to the script. After that, we get to our first theme series, Crazy 3. A series where only 3-cylinder cars are allowed to compete. Pretty self-explanatory, but the reward for completing it would not be a 3-cylinder car. Rather, it would be a car that can be used in the next event within the theme series, which you can probably piece together by now. That is how all themed series will work in this game. The events give you cars that you can use in the next series, because that's how progression works. Gran Turismo. Front Wheel Frenzy is just like Crazy 3, a themed event in a series of them, except this time you get the joys of horrendous understeer on a mix of medium and low speed tracks. What the Truck is a series about trucks. Shouldn't be all too surprising, but I only added to this one because the name was too good not to use. And in the final event in the Not So Big League, we have the Forged Amateur Finale, a championship of 5 races and 1 200 to 300 horsepower road car. Unlike the other events where you could choose what car to use each race, in every championship, you've got to thug it out in one car of your choosing that you've earned as of that far, or bought. A decent step up in performance from the rest of the events, but it'll use a mix of tracks previously used in order to allow players to piece together how to drive on those same tracks from before, with a little more pep in their step. Once you've placed top 3 in this, you're now allowed to move on to the more official races in this game, the Forged Stars Championships. Except you're not entirely there yet. This is a serious championship buster, and you don't have racing certifications yet. So, off you go to driving school, this game's version of the License Center. They're pretty much the exact same as GC's licenses, given a different name, certifications. What level of certification you have is dictated by a band on your helmet, with bronze being the lowest, apart from no certification since you're in the amateurs, going through to silver, gold, amethyst, and finally, diamond. There's one more certification you can choose to earn at the end of the game called the Moonstone Band, which can be used to enter some of the hardest but most rewarding events in this game. And yes, I decided to name it after Jens because I'm a corny son of a bitch. Once you've completed at least half of the 10 tests given to you in each driving school level, you can then compete in the next series, which for you, my amateur friend, is now the Bronze Band. Welcome. However, to race in the final event, you must complete the remaining license tests in the category. So it's up to you whether you want the prize card for completing all 10 tests at the start, middle, or end of the run. Of course, you also get a bonus prize for all golds, but don't think that'll be too easy, barring that you're not actually a really good driver. In between the amateurs and the Bronze Band though, there's a whole optional series for you to take part in if you so please. The Country Car Cup. 6 series, 6 countries cars, 3 races each, with the rewards possibly being pretty helpful for the Bronze Band. This is the first set of 3 Country Car Cups throughout the game, and I'd say that they're all worth driving not only for the rewards, but for the experience. The different events are the American Auto, Renaissance Racing, Schmidt Series, Parisian Power, Queen's Cup, and Rising Sun Series. You could probably piece together what each one is for. We're not slacking on names here, by the way. No. We don't do basic bitch names. That's not how this works. We're not doing the World Touring Car 600 or whatever the fuck Gran Turismo calls it. No. That's lame. We come up with cool names around here. The events in the Bronze Band carry forward in the same speed and tone from the Forged Amateur Finale, as does every band's final event compared to the next level of events. Each league will carry forward the pace from the championship of the last league you were in, meaning this one is focused on sports cars. And the first event shows this, as we start off with No Replacement for Displacement, an event centered around naturally aspirated sports cars, which aren't all entirely two-door coupes by the way, that serves as an intro to faster cars as the game moves forward. Class Act Classics, of course, is an event that only permits you to drive old cars, teaching the player how to manage the technology of the olden days of 40 to 50 years ago. Steering and braking will indeed be a pain in the ass to get used to, but it all serves to make you a more well-rounded driver in the game, and real life if you have a wheel. I'm not turning off ABS, that's fucking stupid. But I understand that lack of nimbleness is pretty annoying after a while, so the Lightweights event is here to offer a rest for your thumbs. Cars under 2,800 pounds with a solid amount of power means that you'll have to learn what throttle control can really do for you, if you haven't already learned it yet. 4x4 is the second event in the engine series that goes throughout the rest of the single player mode, and of course can only be driven by cars with 4 cylinders. Party in the Back is the FR event following the FF event in the amateurs, aka Front Wheel Frenzy. With a set limit of performance allowed, as well as only using tire compounds up to sports medium, this series is also here to help you manage oversteer and learn how to throttle control. So they're pretty much the same extent as the Lightweights event, but with a much wider variety of cars that you might find a little cooler. Drag Racing Demons is our first divergence from typical road racing, as in this event you learn the fundamentals of drag racing in different street cars. Reaction time, upshifts, getting grip off the line, the whole lot. Spool Drool is my creative name for the race of turbo sports cars in Gran Turismo. Same deal as with the NA series from before, but now you get that oh so lovely spool droning in your ears as you drive alongside cars from all kinds of eras. And congratulations, you've now reached the final event in the Bronze Band, the Bronze Stars Championship. A series of races utilizing higher horsepower road cars and even featuring some detuned race cars turned road cars. Once you get your top 3 in the series, you've now shown enough skill to finally get into some proper race cars. Head on over to the driving school, get your certification, because you moved on to the Silver Band. The Silver Band is a much bigger step up from amateur to bronze, as now you're starting to dabble in full-blown race categories. But before you do, there's one type of street car you really haven't been introduced to at this point, and 4 Wheels More Squeals is focused on those cars. 4-wheel drive and all-wheel drive drivetrains and how they react so differently compared to both front and rear-wheel drive cars is something you need to learn. This is where you learn how to do stuff like 4-wheel drift, manage understeer and oversteer at the same time, as well as chaining together corners more effectively, which will become more important later in this very band. And now we're getting into the first major recurring series in the single player campaign, with the first event of the Touring Car Trials 1. Using 70s, 80s, and 90s touring cars, you're introduced to proper race cars and how they handle for the first time. It doesn't help that they're old too, meaning it'll be quite difficult for more inexperienced players to get a grip, literally and figuratively, with these cars. But maybe you shouldn't do the bare minimum license then, Maybe you should actually go past, halfway through certifications. I don't know. Heavyweights is about as self-explanatory as it gets. 3,600 pounds or above is all you get. So pretty much everything made after 2020, you can use in this. Supercharged Sailing is the last event in the series of forced induction races, and as its name implies, you're going to hear a lot of whining. The good kind. The very good kind. I'm a supercharger guy over turbos any day of the week, I'm going to say it. They might be less efficient, they might be worse, they might be stupid, but I love a supercharger. I love it so much more than a turbo. I should also probably mention by this point that events usually feature 4 racers or more in them. I probably should have said that earlier, just around the Bronze Band is when that started happening, but hey, I'm sorry. I just saw it in my script. I'm very, very sorry. Tuned and Tailored is the event of the tuning shop. From Alpina kits to Nismo, TRD and AMG, This is where you get pretty much forced to use the up trim feature in the customization shop, which I haven't created a name for yet. Possibly something like forged tuning and kits. Like GT Auto, we could have forged tune, you know what I mean. I have no fucking idea. 5 Alive is the event featuring my favorite engine of all time, the Straight 5. And the VR5 if you're weird. Nothing but that signature buzz for all the races in this event, and I can only hope you enjoy it as much as I do. And now we get to the start of the mini championship in this game behind the Forged Stars Championship, the Premier Series. A light precursor to the final event in each league, the Premier Series features races in the highest performance cars one could use at this stage of the game, and at this point is GT4 cars in the Premier C Series. The goal of it is to not only begin to get accustomed to these race cars, but to also practice for the final championship itself, using tracks similar to the ones featured in the championship, but smaller or having less in-race variety in them. These races would also be a little shorter, around 12 to 15 minutes each, rather than the 20 to 25 in the championships. This next event is where an entire new section of the game opens up, and yet another divergence from typical road racing. Welcome to Down and Dirty, aka rallying. Not on rally circuits like Gran Turismo's done for years though, no. Full-blown stages. No corners cut with this game, so very sorry to my imaginary developers going through hellfire and brimstone and agony to model this. To compete in the Down and Dirty series, a new section of the driving school has opened up, Rally Certification. There's a total of 20 different rally tests in this section, but you only need to complete 5 to compete in Down and Dirty 1. You'll of course need to complete more to be able to do the other Down and Dirty events in the future. This first intro to rally uses road cars with dirt, snow, and tarmac rally tires to introduce you to rallying's core tenets. Handbrake use, pace notes, chaining, trying not to Toivonen, you know how it goes. Using a mix of original and real rally stages, if you mess up once, it's pretty much game over. Of course, since it's a rally, you'll be competing against other cars, but not directly, using the times they previously set, and you'll be challenged with beating them. It's important to mention, we're only using some rally stages in the majority of the game, but with each Down and Dirty, you'll use more. So in this one, it's 1 per actual race, as in the one you click on and you're like, yes, this is the one I'm doing. Then 2 and 3 and so on. You know the saying, big things come in small packages. Well, that's what this event, big things, small packages, is all about. Lightweight, decently powerful vehicles that love to whip the tail out and kill spectators. To help the player even more with proper driving technique, traction control will be turned off in this event just to make it that much more terrifying and fun. The Silver Stars Championship is here. Strap yourself back into whatever GT4 car of your choice and do what you gotta do. Or you can be brave, give yourself a little more freedom. Modify a road car, get all the proper aero, the tires, tune it to the regulations, and you can do it that way. Expect to be a little faster in the straights, a little slower in the corners. Decisions, my friend. Once you get that top 3, that prize car, and you top up your certification, you're now in the proper big leagues. The gold band awaits you. If you don't want to get straight back to business though, you've got the second rounds of the Country Car Cup to entertain yourself with in the meantime. All the previous series are back with faster cars, better drivers, and different tracks. But there's a brand new category for you to compete in, the Down Under Derby. Oceania's finest machinery on some of its best tracks. Some of the best value vehicles in the game can be earned through prizes here, so it's up to you whether you want to spend some time racing some Fords, Lambos, or Holdens to get them. The gold band starts off once again with a road car event, but out of all road cars, I'd say it's about as track focused as you can get. Midship Madness is the final event in the Drivetrain series, finishing strong with the most race-like drivetrain out there, MR. Learning to manage liftoff oversteer as well as getting used to being able to chuck cars into corners faster than ever before sets a good precedent for the game's single player from here on out. The Touring Car Trials too switch away from the DTM and BTCC cars of the past to the V8 supercars and BTCC cars of today, and also a little bit less in the past. Managing more power all while dealing with faster and faster and angrier competition is set to prepare you for the bullshit that can happen in racing at times, online or in-game, in single player, while also making you much more skilled. Stock Car Stars is pretty self-explanatory. From the stock cars of the past to now, you'll learn that oval racing is a lot more than just turning left. One fuck up and you'll be upside down, hit at 200 miles an hour, or fly into the fencing at that same speed. Fast from the Past is all about getting a grip on old race cars, sort of an extension of the earlier Class Act Classics, but on a lot of anabolics. This series teaches you how to manage extreme power with lightweight, rudimentary tech, and very bad tires, being limited to sports medium at most. Enjoy recreating famous motorsport deaths if you so please. The Premier B Series gears you up for GT3 racing and trusting your aero a lot more. From here on out, racing is a lot more closely contended than before, with everyone being a little faster, a little more consistent, and a lot more aggressive. It gives you just a taste of what's upcoming in the game. Down and Dirty 2 comes back with purpose-built modern WRC cars, and much harder and longer stages while also taking away your mini-map, having to rely on pace notes and their illustrations to get your way around each corner. I wouldn't be so evil as to just limit it to pace notes, no. The corner type and the actual shape of the corner will pop up on screen for you to see very, very quickly. Including some nighttime racing in there too, this event is bound to mess you up big time if you're not prepared. Rainmasters 1 is a new series of events all about wet weather racing and its challenges. Starting off with GT3 cars, your traction control is turned off, meaning you're going to need to manage all that power with all that lack of weight perfectly, or else you're going to be dealing with a very swift restart. My 6 Fix is the next event in the engine series, utilizing any 6-cylinder layout you want. This is where truly high-performance road cars start to come into play. It prepares you for learning how to drive the much faster road cars available to use in the game for later events. And finally, the Gold Stars Championship. GT3 cars or heavily modified road cars, your choice. With the competition being literally world-class at this point, these races aren't going to be a cakewalk. Once you get through it though, receive your trophy whether it's bronze, silver, or gold, you get to work on your next round of certifications and move on to the really high-level shit now. The Amethyst Band is where racing goes from competitive and challenging to still being competitive and challenging, but much, much scarier. With the cars at this level of performance in the game being that fast, you better hope you actually gain some knowledge from those certification tests, not because you want it, but you need it. Endurance Excellence 1 is a great introduction to this new level of racing, as just a couple fuck-ups or bad decisions will lead you right back to the starting grid and possibly a lot of time lost. A variety of cars can be chosen, road cars included, but unless you want to be refueling a fair amount, race cars might be the method. Of course, I wouldn't be evil enough to force you to race for a full 3 hours or more. If you want to, you can earn more money from that than someone who doesn't race 3 hours or more. But if time is of the essence, aka you're employed or you have a girlfriend, boyfriend, partner, whatever it is, then you can do a driver swap. You can choose to direct the driver's pace in order to keep position, and you can speed up time by as much as 5 times in that menu, so you can still save time and, direct your race even if you aren't actually racing. Or you can let the AI do its thing and leave it up to chance, sort of. I might as well talk about how endurance races will work in my perfect game, but basically, I don't expect people to spend 2+ hours racing in a video game. That's not my expectation. If they want to, then by all means go ahead, but there is a minimum payout for each endurance race. Completing 10% gives you that base payout, and while that does seem a little bit short, even that 10% that you have to race for that minimum payout, it's still pretty hard competition because you're in the Amethyst Band, so it'll be worth that money. But there's different points reached when manually raced that offer more money. 25% of the event race gives an extra 15% of credits, 50% gives another 15%, which I know sounds confusing, and if you do the full race, the payout is doubled, including the previous 30% that you already earned from the other 2 points reached. It, again, is a little confusing, but overall, I found it the best way to cover endurance races instead of how GT4 does it, where the payout is the same regardless of if you put yourself into B-Spec mode and just watch the driver go around. Style and Speed is about as uncreative as it gets, to be honest. This name isn't very good, but The event is all about luxury cars and brands, as cars are defined as luxury or economy or sports, whatever, with the tag system. All that tech and leather and wood with a rear center console that can hold 3 bottles of Douce, they're gonna weigh a ton. Therefore, it teaches you once again how to manage heavy cars while still maintaining good pace and minimizing errors. Pretty much an extension of heavyweights, but with a lot more chrome. Supercar Celebration is self-explanatory, and it's also the new worst name for any event in this game behind Big Things Small Packages. But now you get the luxury of driving cars that are fast, stylish, and responsive, which is always a plus. 8 Greats is the 8-cylinder event in the engine series and probably the one with the widest variety of cars in it. You have the choice of old and new muscle and supercars. You can have a heavily tuned up sports car that can compete at this level if you want. If you have the funds to do an engine swap, then you can do that too if you want to be different. The variety allows for this event, and really any event in this game, to be replayable because of just how many cars you can choose from. And everyone loves replayability, as I stated before. Road Rally Royalty is specifically dedicated to the Monte Carlo Rally, getting to race at the most iconic stages of the event in whatever rally car you want. Whether it's purpose-built or converted into one through upgrades, it's also probably the hardest event in the game, unless you really love tight winding circuits with zero margin for error. It's also possibly my favorite and least favorite idea of Conjured Up, as it sounds really cool, but I'm terrible at twisty circuits. The license test in the master license test for Gran Turismo, the one with the Ferrari F12 or whatever it's called, the A12, whatever it is, on the Tokyo Central Clockwise, that took me about 45 minutes to do because I'm fucking stupid. So I can't imagine what manner of accident I'd make happen here. Touring Car Trials 3 is the final Touring Car Trials event, and it's all endurance. So the same rules I explained before apply here, but now you're in an Alpha 155 DTM or something. Rainmasters 2 is the same premise as before, but with GT2 cars now. It's not mandatory, but with the flexible weather used throughout the game, you never know when that extra practice might come in handy, especially with that kind of power to weight ratio in a GT2 car. The Premier A Series follows the same trend as before. GT2 cars, complex, fast tracks, very speedy AI. It's just the teaser for the final event in the series as per usual. 10 out of 10 is the 10-cylinder championship and is the complete opposite of the 8 Greats event, as the spread of cars with V10s isn't particularly varied. I mean, you got what, the LFA and the Viper. It doesn't mean it still isn't a joy to just listen to the cars though, let alone drive them. And the Amethyst All-Star Championship rounds out this band. The first real race of the endgame. GT2 machinery and GT2 adjacent machinery only. Road cars cannot be upgraded to compete against GT2 cars in this game. The lightweight, high power, and insane aero means that these things stick to the ground like crazy, as you may know. Once they get loose though, it's really hard to get them back in line. Being consistent over 10 races, each one being a solid 20 to 30 minutes long, means that by the end of this championship, you're definitely going to be a little tired. Don't think it's over yet though. You still got to get that last certification and one more group to compete in and collect from. If you want to break from the G-forces though, the Country Car Cup's last races are here, featuring the original 6 plus an extra event called the Alternative Auto Market. Cars from countries that aren't globally recognized for their contributions to motorsport, but still have some vehicles worth global recognition, from countries like Croatia and Denmark to South Africa and the Netherlands. The Diamond Band is the final mainline league in the game, utilizing the absolute cream of the crop of performance from every era. As we see with Endurance Excellence 2, an event dedicated to the Group 6 endurance cars of the late 60s and early 70s. Death traps labeled as race cars that look absolutely insane and drive even more so. It would definitely be one of the harder events in the game, but the rewards given out from it, and the rest of the events from here on out, make it all worth it. Hypercar Stars is pretty self-explanatory, same as the Supercar Celebration, but you're going a little bit faster, just a little bit. But don't think it's all that easy, as this event does indeed have a street circuit on it in my plans, just to make you realize that you're not as well-rounded as you thought you were. Unless you're driving an Agero 101, in that case I think you can win any race in the fucking game. The final event in the Down and Dirty series, Down and Dirty 3, is all about Group B and Group A. Trying to tame the beast that no one in real life fully could should put up quite a challenge for you, if you choose to do it. The prize cars can be pretty sick at the end too, no matter which one you get. Oh, I forgot to say this. Yeah, I'm doing the roulette system from GT3. Delve into 12 as the final event in the engine series, finishing it off with the perfection of 12-cylinder engines. Nothing but straight performance here. And while it's a pretty homogeneous class, would you really complain about that in this specific situation? I don't know if I would. The final mainline mandatory Premier Series race, the Premier X Series, features the absolute 100% fastest cars in the game, barring single-seaters. LMH and GTP cars going at it on some of the fastest and most prestigious tracks in the world, as well as a couple of the game's originals. A great warm-up for the finale. High Speed Heroes is literally just like the wind. Use whatever car you'd like as long as you know it's fast, because if it isn't, it's going to be a very long race for you, my friend. The final Endurance Excellence event, Endurance Excellence 3, is strictly for Group C prototypes, of which there's a variety to choose from, and they're all equally scary to drive in some of these conditions. The only non-mandatory Premier Series event in the game, the GTX Series, utilizes GT1 machines from the mid-90s all the way to its death in the early 2010s, as well as using one class of iconic GT2 cars from the mid to late 90s. Basically, a full series of some of the most iconic race cars ever made. And after all this time, all this grinding, racing, rallying, trying not only to beat the others, but beat yourself, you've reached the Forged Diamond Superstars Championship. The longest event in the main single player mode, with the most prestigious race cars currently raced in the world that aren't called F1. This is going to be a challenge. Complex tracks, extremely unpredictable weather, the fastest AI in the game, and almost no margin for error. There's a reason why it's named after the gem made from pressure. And once you've beat it, you can now claim to be the greatest racer in your house. Maybe your street. And after a very long and rewarding campaign, your car collection should look absolutely insane. With a mix of earned and bought, tuned and purpose-built vehicles in your garage, from here on out, the game's world is yours. If you want a little more challenge though, don't worry, there's still one more league you can compete in. Of course, once you receive your certification for it. The Moonstone Band is an entirely optional series dedicated to all the different kinds of racing disciplines shown in the game, and some that weren't. Some of the races in the Moonstone Band were actually unlocked earlier in the game, but it wasn't really called the Moonstone Band at this point. Starting off with the first discipline that you wouldn't have seen until this point though, you have the Formula Series. Utilizing Formula 1 cars from a bunch of different eras, with some races being full race length. The prize money and prize cars from these events in the Moonstone Band are absolutely insane, the cream of the crop in the game. The Drift Series, allowing you to live your wildest sideways dreams in cars ranging from tiny little two-seaters to the most insane Formula Drift cars in the world, was unlocked earlier in the game, but really just transitioned into the Moonstone Band. I haven't really found a way to describe that, but basically some events will have their modes, I guess, unlocked before the Moonstone Band can be even earned. So stuff like drifting and a couple others that you'll see were previously unlocked as just special events, and that's what they were categorized as. Once you finish the Diamond Superstars Championship, it then changes to the Moonstone Band where you can see all options. The NASCAR series, or Stock Car series if you want to call it that, has full-blown, full-length NASCAR races using different stock cars from the 60s to now. The Rally series, which uses full rally stages that take multiple days to complete if you're playing reasonable lengths of time per day, use a wide array of rally cars and a wide variety of stages. The Endurance series has the highest paying races in the game on some of the largest, most technical circuits in Forge Premier. Once again, many cars from many eras make an appearance. And finally, Drag Racing. A series of races ranging from an eighth mile to a full mile long drag strip against different purpose-built drag cars, including Top Fuel dragsters right at the end. This brings the total count of races in the game in events to 370, 143 of which are mandatory, the remaining 227 are not. It is so chock full of content that replayability is almost inevitable. With that many different options and prizes, it's bound to be a game that can be fulfilling for years and years to come, which is what I wanted from a single player GT game mode. Timelessness. Don't think we're done yet though. This is a game in the modern age, therefore we need an online multiplayer. So after going through literally every event in the game in slight detail, what would I describe my perfect racing game multiplayer to be? GT7 Online. It's that simple. I just copied GT7's Online and put it in my game. Done. It's just that. No, seriously though, for all this game's faults, the multiplayer is not one of them. I'd say it's probably the best multiplayer in a racing game besides Forza Horizon again. It can be casual, it can be semi-competitive, it can be genuinely competitive. I mean, it can become real-life competitive. Its actual gameplay is great because GT7 has great physics, graphics, and tracks. The vibe of your choice can be selected whenever you want. There's always car meet lobbies, there's car shows, there's 4 fun races. Sport mode, which seems to be the only well thought out and utilized feature in this game, is amazing too. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. That doesn't mean I don't have my gripes with it, nor does it mean I think I can't improve it. So with the foundation of GT7's multiplayer, here's how I'd build off of it. The setup for lobbies is already pretty good in GT7, but with a game like Forge Premier with so much content in it, I feel like the lobby settings need to be a bit more in-depth. For example, GT7 lobbies allow you to set a PP limit so no overpowered cars can do any sort of fuckery in your racing lobby. But what if someone wants to have a specific type of car or groups of cars to race against in a lobby? They can change the name of the lobby to use this car or kick, but that means having to manually kick each person from the lobby, which is pointless and time consuming in my opinion. It also kicks you out of the race you're doing if they got in the race, which means you have to forfeit your fun to make sure everybody else's fun stays the same as a host. This just isn't cool. This feature can also be used for themed RP lobbies, which there's role-playing lobbies in Gran Turismo. Not like, well, sort of like GTA, except it's really just like cops and robbers. I don't like those lobbies. Everybody's a fucking stickler in them. Everybody fucking sucks. Say someone wants to do Wangan cruising on the Tokyo Highways map using only 80s and 90s JDM cars. Well, they need to get everyone to comply with that or kick them, which is the same problem as before. People don't always listen, as I've learned through hosting a couple race lobbies in my lifetime. So implementing a one maker, one series, or one tag feature would be one of the first ideas I'd add into Forged. The penalty system in GT7 isn't terrible, but it's strangely inconsistent. Sometimes you don't get a penalty when you run wide off a turn, other times you get your asshole flipped inside out by the imaginary E-stewards and they spit on your dog and they give you a 5-second penalty for a barrier collision. This inconsistency has lost me enough races to count on 2 hands, and while it's rare, it's seriously morale crushing and it doesn't make you want to play anymore. Therefore, through some magic that I don't know how it works at all, there would be a better penalty system that analyzes the situation and properly hands out penalties to drivers who cause errors and to drivers who are on the receiving end of errors. I know it sounds crazy because GT7's social aspects are absolutely great. The online experience, the livery editor, share page, suit and helmet customization, they all get on the share page. Scapes photos too. It's very in-depth for a racing game. But I feel like there's some pretty easy things to add that I've featured in prior games, sort of, that could enhance the community aspect of GT7 even more. Some ideas I have include livery/build competitions run by Forged itself, the game. As in, the game gives you a car to create a livery or full build that fits a theme, or a group of cars to create a theme from. You know, DTM, LMP1, Group 6. Maybe even original categories like famous cars from media, driving community themes like sleeper cars or show cars. It allows for the livery editor to have even more use, as these design competitions can offer in-game or real-life prizes. Giving back to the player base has always been something I admire with game companies whenever they do it. Clearly this game would make bajillions of dollars because it's my game and therefore everybody likes it. So why not sacrifice a couple $1,000s that wouldn't have gone anywhere else? Another idea I have is bringing custom tracks back. GT5 sort of had it with a track generator that they called a course maker, and GT6 had it too. It came 2 years after the game had been released, well into the PS4 era, because by the way, GT6 I'm pretty sure was the last PS3 game. It was released in December of 2013 when the PS4 came out in like October or September. So I don't know why they did that. Actually I do, but like still really weird. And on top of being released in 2015 on the PS3, it was only on mobile. This game, everything's in-app. Everything is possible through the game itself. And now you're starting to see why I said this game would be over 200 gigabytes. Probably more, honestly. I don't know shit about software, so if any of you are software people watching this video, let me know what you think this game size would be, and you can call me retarded for thinking it would be possible in the first place. I read all my comments, so please. This in-game track maker would be in-depth, allowing you to do literally whatever you want. Similar to the event island in Forza, but you're allowed to choose from certain themes. For the sake of conciseness, I'd probably implement like 10 to 15 themes to choose from. Snow maps, dirt maps, coastal, inland, lake, mountain, all that jazz. And from there, you can choose whatever trackside scenery you like, and also different times of day. This allows for way more community creativity, and I'd plan on doing the same thing with the livery competitions, and add a track design competition where the winner gets their track actually implemented into the game, through updates and DLC, which I'll get to. I've said that a lot, I'm sorry. Their track would be used in new single player events added post-launch and hopefully even in some online modes too. So, that's what I'd personally add to Forged on top of what's already been set in stone with GT7's online. Other than that, the only other sort of social aspect I think of is having certain tracks in game be more inclined to things like car shows, car meets, stuff like that. I love doing car shows in GT7, but the only track people use for it is Tokyo Expressway East counterclockwise, which is a mouthful. I don't have any issues with it at all, but I wish for once that there could be a different scenery or lighting instead of the white buildings and afternoon sunset, and it's just tiring. I'd also create tabs for car meets, car shows specifically, instead of free runs, so people could use that as a search tool instead of having to go to the Tokyo Expressway counterclockwise tab, mouthful again, and looking for an open car show or car meet. Just for more ease of access, which is already pretty good in GT7, I must admit. So sort of moving away from aspects of multiplayer, we're moving into co-op. Because I believe split screen is essential for racing games. I don't care what you say. In the modern age, I don't care. I used to play split screen GT6 with my sister all the time, and it's still a great memory for me. Less for her because she was younger than me, so she was worse at games, and I was still a little kid, so I was an absolute bitch when I won. I'm sorry. I believe having split screen makes the game that much more accessible. Not accessible like GT6 or 7, where they sacrifice large chunks of the game to make it more streamlined though. This is literally a way for more people to enjoy racing games, whether it's your friend coming over or you running races against your family. On top of LAN, I'd also add a co-op to online, but not in the way that you think, because I want to add endurance races to my online racing experience. I believe that online endurance racing isn't really a tapped into market yet. Co-op comes into play by allowing you to simulate driver swaps with a friend or couple of friends depending on how long the race is. With Discord being a thing on PlayStation now, it's not out of the question that people could use it to talk and coordinate with their friends during an endurance race online. Doing this for rallies could be cool too. Having an in-game feature to have your homeboy read pace notes to you could be a cool idea. I'd implement both of these ideas into my game's sport mode, which I'll expand upon now. Because I like sport mode in GT7. I think it's very well executed as their non-competitive multiplayer is. I'd even take some of their ideas, like weekly time trials, weekly races that they call daily races because they're fucking stupid sometimes, manufacturer and Nations Cup. These are all super cool features that I think enhance the game a lot, but I'd add my own personal twist to them. Starting off with the weekly races, because I think the time trials are really good right now anyways. I hate the overuse of GR3 and GR4 cars in the game. I think they can do so much more with Daily Race B and C, because Daily Race A is always something funky or it's like a one-make race, and I like that. Those two others are just not utilized to their full potential in my opinion. I know there isn't a lot of different classes in GT7. I'm pretty sure it's just GR4, GR3, GR2, GR1, then GRB, which I don't think they've ever used in a weekly race before, by the way. I don't think they've used Group B in a weekly race. I'm mostly saying this because it's the same combinations that show up all the time in daily races. I mean, for once, can you use tracks other than Deep Forest, Trial Mountain, and Catalonia, please? I'm pretty sure they've only used 40% of all the tracks and track variations in their game in the weekly races. Seriously, it gets tedious, man. Like, as of writing this script, just last week, they had a JGTC themed daily race C at Suzuka, completely variable weather, genuinely the best online race they've ever added into this game. It's genuinely the best. Cool cars, great weather simulation, different, how do I put this? The cars aren't all the same like in GR3. There's differences in GR3 and GR4, of course, like some cars are going to be faster in the corners, faster in the straights, yada yada. But the difference was serious with this race. So, like the Diablo and the Nismo, they were much faster. Nismo as in like the R32. They were so much faster in the straights than other cars, but other cars were much, much better throughout the corners. So it created genuine parity. And the next week, which is the week as of me writing this, Mount Panorama Group 4, which is sort of cool. And Deep Forest Group 3, again! Even though it's reversed, it's still Group 3 Deep Forest. And I know that they do this because they absolutely bastardized Trial Mountain and Deep Forest so they could be better for racing. So they're going to squeeze as much as possible out of them. In Forged, with overarching categories like GT4 and GT2, as well as more specific categories like touring cars, hypercars, wagons, there's a lot more potential for unique and fun races to happen. So here's how I'd format it. You're not rated by letters, rather gemstones used in the game. So in GT7, there's driver rating E, D, C, B, A, A+. Forged system would go like bronze, silver, gold, amethyst, diamond, moonstone. There are 3 weekly races that reset at midnight on Monday, and I'll name them after gems and minerals just to keep it distinct, as well as give an order for their difficulty. GT7's races aren't really listed by difficulty or things like that, but it usually goes like Daily Race A is a weird one, Daily Race B is the most accessible one, Daily Race C is the longer, harder one. But that's not really defined all the time. So in this one, they're strictly defined. The Amethyst Weekly would be the equivalent of Daily Race A. Quirky car groups or one-make races that are purely there for fun. They don't affect your driver or safety ratings, nothing like that. Diamond Weeklies would be the Daily Race B, and it would be those middle-of-the-road races like I mentioned before. Could vary from, I don't know, 300 horsepower road cars all the way up to GT3 and supercars. The Moonstone Weekly is everything GT2 and above. The absolute fastest races throughout the week that utilize ultra high-end race cars as well as vintage race cars too. Now, a completely new section I'd like to add to my game would be the special events in their own category named after other gems. The rally section would be named the Onyx Weekly, the stock car racing would be the Ruby, drifting the Sapphire, and drag racing the Emerald. You might be asking yourself why I'm arbitrarily naming these races after gemstones. Well, one, it's corny, and all racing games need some level of corniness in my opinion. And secondly, because the game has a prestigious looking name, so I might as well keep that facade up with the whole aesthetic of, gemstones. I'm adding this in post. I'm very sorry. I forgot to add an endurance category in my script, but I'd probably name it after like the rarest thing in the world or something. I don't know what the rarest mineral in the world is. It's on the screen. That's what the endurance races would be named after. So there you go. With all of that outlined, how do I keep the competitive races from being monotonous? Well, I came up with an arbitrary rule, because that's how everything is now. No two categories and tracks will feature less than 3 months apart. With 100 tracks and upwards of 1,000 cars and a whole bunch of categories, I wouldn't plan on paying my developers an absolutely exuberant amount of money for the time this game would take, just to not utilize everything they poured their heart and soul to. GT7 has both the Nations Cup and Manufacturers Cup in the game. Two events that result in the highest finishers getting opportunities for motorsport in real life if they aren't already doing it in real life, or just flat out prize money. I really like that idea, so I'm going to copy it shamelessly, adding both the Manufacturers Cup and Nations Cup into the game. The way it works is pretty much the exact same, except this game would also offer motorsport opportunity to those in lower ranks, down to about gold rated drivers, which is, I think, B. It's there just to give those who have potential real opportunities to take it somewhere. These events would happen 4 months apart, the Manufacturers Cup in April, the Nations Cup in August. But don't think I didn't add my own original idea in here now. I decided to create an all-out Forged Cup, a week-long event with a new race every day of that week, culminating in an endurance race. Each race gets 2 tracks, one forged and one real-life track. It would start during the winter break for adults, I say in quotes, and the real winter break for kids, right around a couple days before Christmas time. 2 touring car races Monday and Tuesday, 2 rallies using the most iconic stages from the real life and forged track used on Wednesday and Thursday, 2 GT races, a GT2 and GT1 race Friday, Saturday, and finally, a 3-hour endurance race with no driver swaps, the ultimate test. The theme and track of the endurance race would change every year, and the tracks for the previous races would change every year too. The reward for even completing one race would be quite a bit, and the final payouts would be similar to the payout for getting all gold in the Manufacturers Cup in GT7, but for everybody. I also thought ahead. There would be an option to opt in or out of the endurance race for the entire week, as early as 2 hours before it starts. And that doesn't mean that you lose points, rather it means your series ends there and you're grouped in with others that also didn't compete in it too. You will lose a significant amount of money, but it wouldn't be fair to those who did compete in it if they earned the same money as someone who didn't compete in it. The most impressive drivers from each driver's rank receive an in-game award and opportunity to do some racing in real life if they choose to do so. A solid way to round out the year and earn a lot of funds, even for just competing in one round. I also thought about adding a full 24-hour race that you need to enter with 3 other friends that could net you real life money, as well as giving money to charity, but even I thought that was a bit too ambitious, and this whole video is way too ambitious, so if you think it's a good idea, you're probably just as stupid as me, and I love you for that. But let me know in the comments, why not? And yes, I said give you money, as this company probably already has a lot of money they could give away to both its players and charity if the game is this large in scope. You know, thinking realistically here. So that's my dream competitive aspect in a racing game, which brings me to the last thing I need to talk about for Forge Premier, or Forge Premier if you live in France or Quebec or all those French countries in Africa. Shout out my guys in Niger. Shout out to my guys in Cameroon, Cote d'Ivoire. To get this out of the way, I'm not doing any paid DLC. It's downloadable content. DLC, not PDLC for paid downloadable content. You call it PDLC if you're going to make it PDLC. If it's just DLC, I expect it to be fucking free because it's downloadable content, not purchasable or paid downloadable content. Sorry, I got a little off track. Free updates every 2 to 3 months or so to add new single player events and new cars. Every 6 months, New tracks would be added, whether they're real life tracks, forged tracks, or tracks designed by the winner of the track making challenge. The only way the company would earn money is through the upkeep of the game every year. I'd have to think of some way to spoil this game's perfection, as a lot of this is, again, I have no clue, but I'm somewhat guessing it's possibly feasible on the next generation of consoles with a massive design team and a lot of time given to produce the game, meaning I've got to have a little bit of ties of realism. The way this game would make money is by allowing you to buy in-game currency. It's not advertised and it can't be done until at least a certain amount or the full amount of the single player is done. I haven't really decided. And I wouldn't design a game in a way where certain cars are unobtainable unless you buy credits. That's shitty business practices, and I'm not in the business of shitty business. Fuck you, Activision. And the other way this game would earn money would be through upkeep. The yearly upkeep would be about $10 Canadian, and everybody is given a time to pay for it, like they can pay it whenever they want through the year. And it's there just so the game can still generate revenue. Well, $7 or so for you Americans and Brits would seem crazy. Considering everything the game would have to offer, I know I'd pay that amount in a heartbeat if it meant the game would only get more and more content. Better and better content. Because of course it's my perfect racing game and I do that regardless, but you know what I mean. Let me know if it's a good idea. Instead of games having predatory business practices, they just have like an upkeep, a one-time payment once a year, a small payment that allows the game to still generate revenue. I don't think a game's ever done that. And I don't know if it's a good idea or not, but to me, I think it's not that bad. And with that, I have now described to you my perfect racing game. An overall perfect game in general. I know this video has been pretty unserious, but honestly, even making this video is like extremely fun for me. Therapeutic to a point too, because gaming sucks right now. But honestly, it allowed me to like sort of just be stupid again, like be a kid again, to have my like imagination run free and envision something genuinely perfect for me. Something I love forever. You know, something like Gran Turismo. Clearly, they're really trying fucking hard for me not to love Gran Turismo anymore, but whatever. Even if this video doesn't take off, it was worth every moment I spent working on it. And if you made it this far, I hope every second you watched was worth it too. This is absolutely my biggest video ever, like by a whole light year. So it means the world that you were able to sit through my annoying, fluctuating accent that changes for no reason, and I don't know why that happens, by the way. I don't. It means the world that you were able to even click on it, you know, let alone get this far. So if you're hearing or watching this right now, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Have a good day, a night, morning, whenever you're watching this, just thank you.